Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, we just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you all for watching. We truly appreciate your support. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, it's totally free, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. Now, with all that said, let's jump straight into the story.
I never intended to become the monster I am. I was once a man like any other, with a job, a home, and a life that, while not perfect, was mine to live. But everything changed after I was sent to prison. The walls of that place, those cold, unyielding stones, seemed to suffocate me from the moment they closed behind me. The air felt heavy, thick with the weight of countless sins and the despair of the damned. My name is John, and this is the story of my downfall. I was convicted for a crime I didn't commit. A misunderstanding, a lie, a moment of misplaced trust, these were the things that sealed my fate. I was sentenced to 5 years, and as the cell door clanged shut, I felt a presence in the darkness, a creeping chill that seemed to seep into my bones. At first, I attributed it to the fear and anxiety of my new surroundings. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I realized that something far more sinister was at play. The first night, I heard a faint whisper in the darkness. It was a voice I didn't recognize, soft and insistent, urging me to listen. I tried to ignore it, but the voice grew louder, more demanding. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was coming from the walls themselves, or perhaps from the very air I breathed. It wasn't until the third night that I saw the first apparition. She was a woman, her face pale and drawn, her eyes hollow and devoid of life. She stood in the corner of my cell, her lips moving silently, as if she were reciting a prayer or a curse. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The woman looked at me, and her eyes burned with a cold, unnatural light. She pointed a bony finger at me, and her lips finally moved, forming a single word, him. Who was him? I didn't know, and I didn't want to. But the woman's presence lingered, haunting my dreams and filling my waking hours with dread. I tried to tell the guards, to convince someone that I wasn't losing my mind, but they laughed at me. No one believed that the walls of the prison could hold the spirits of the dead. I was left to suffer alone, my every step and breath haunted by the woman's ghostly presence. As the weeks passed, the apparitions grew more frequent, more terrifying. A man with a scarred face and a cruel, twisted smile appeared, his eyes cold and calculating. He stalked me through the shadows of the prison, his voice a low, evil chuckle that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He called me by a name I didn't recognize, and his laughter sent shivers down my spine. One night, as I lay in my cot, unable to sleep, the woman and the man appeared together. They stood at the foot of my bed, their eyes locked on mine. The woman's expression was one of profound sorrow, while the man's was a twisted mockery of joy. They began to speak, their voices overlapping in a chaotic, otherworldly symphony. "You took everything from us," the woman said, her voice a mournful wail. "Everything," the man echoed, his voice a sinister growl. I tried to understand, to piece together their fragmented story, but their words were like a jumbled puzzle, each piece only adding to the confusion. They spoke of a family, of love and loss, of betrayal and revenge. I didn't understand what they meant, but I could feel the weight of their pain, the depth of their sorrow. It was as if their suffering had seeped into the very fabric of the prison, and now it was consuming me. The apparitions began to reveal more of their story. They were a family, a mother and father, and their children, a young boy and a girl. They lived in a small town on the outskirts of the city, a place I had never visited. One day, a stranger came to their home, a man with a smile that hid a darkness within. He had promised them the world, but in the end, he had taken everything they had. The family was destroyed, and the stranger was never caught. The more I listened, the more I realized that the stranger they described was me. Or, at least, the man I had become in their eyes. The apparitions accused me of crimes I didn't remember, of a night of brutality and bloodshed that I could neither deny nor defend. I told them I was innocent, that I didn't know what they were talking about. But they didn't believe me. The mother's sorrow turned to anger, and the father's twisted joy became a malevolent rage. "You are him," the mother hissed, her voice like a blade. "You are him," the father growled, his eyes glowing with a red, fiery light. The apparitions began to torment me, their presence growing more real, more tangible. I could feel their icy touch on my skin, hear their whispers in my ear. They showed me visions of their home, of the happy life they had once led. And then, they showed me the night it all ended, the night when their world was shattered by a man with a face that could have been mine. I saw the brutality, the violence, and I screamed, but the walls of the prison muffled my cries. The visions became more vivid, more horrifying. I saw the man, the stranger, break into their home, his face twisted with a manic, unhinged grin. I saw him drag the father away, leaving the mother and children defenseless. I saw the mother's desperate struggle, her futile attempts to protect her children. And I saw the man's cold, calculated violence, the way he dispatched the family one by one, their screams echoing through the halls of my prison cell. I tried to convince myself that it was all a nightmare, that I wasn't really seeing these things. But the apparitions were relentless. They showed me every detail, every moment of terror and pain. And in the end, I began to wonder if perhaps, in some twisted way, I had become the man they described. The weight of their accusations, the depth of their suffering, began to consume me. I started to lose myself in their story, to believe that perhaps I had forgotten, that I had buried the memories deep within my own mind. The apparitions grew bolder, their presence more real. The mother's sorrow turned to a seething, unrelenting hatred, and the father's rage became a living, breathing thing. The children, the young boy and girl, appeared to me as well, their faces frozen in terror. They were silent, but their presence was a constant reminder of the lives that had been destroyed. One night, the mother appeared to me, her face contorted with a hatred that burned like acid. She reached out, and her hand passed through me, leaving me cold and numb. She whispered, "You will pay him. You will pay for what you did to us." The next day, I was summoned to the warden's office. He was a stern, unyielding man, his eyes cold and calculating. He looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, recognition, perhaps, or something darker. He told me that I was being released on parole, that my sentence had been shortened due to good behavior. I couldn't believe it. After months of being tormented by the apparitions, I was finally free. But as I left the prison, I felt their presence cling to me, a dark, oppressive cloud that followed me wherever I went. I tried to shake it off, to convince myself that I was free, but the apparitions were always there, always watching, always whispering. They reminded me of the crimes I had supposedly committed, of the family I had destroyed. The weight of their accusations followed me like a shadow, and I couldn't escape it. I wandered the city, aimless and lost. I tried to return to my old life, but everything felt different. The places I once knew, the people I once trusted, all seemed foreign and unwelcoming. I couldn't shake the feeling that the world was against me, that the apparitions were still controlling my every move. Months passed, and I found myself on the run, a fugitive from a crime I didn't remember. I moved from city to city, from state to state, always one step ahead of the law. But the apparitions were always there, always pushing me, always driving me to the brink of madness. They whispered in my ear, urging me to find the answers, to remember what I had done. But the more I tried to remember, the more I realized that there were parts of my past that I had truly forgotten. One night, as I lay in an abandoned motel room, the apparitions appeared to me in full force. The mother, the father, the children, all of them stood before me, their eyes burning with a fire that threatened to consume me. The mother's voice was a harsh, accusing whisper. "Remember him. Remember what you did to us." The father's laughter echoed around me, and the children's silent, accusing stares were like 1,000 needles pricking my skin. I felt a rage that I had never known, a hatred that burned through my veins like acid. In that moment, I snapped. I was no longer the man I had once been. I was the man they had accused me of being, the man who had destroyed their family. I found myself in a small town, a place I had never visited before. But as I walked through the quiet streets, I felt a strange sense of familiarity. I knew where I was going, as if I had walked the same path countless times before. I found the house where the family had once lived, a modest, two-story home that now stood empty and abandoned. The apparitions were there, guiding me, urging me on. I broke into the house, and as I walked through the rooms, I felt a dark, twisted pleasure. I saw the family in my mind, their faces filled with fear, their bodies broken and lifeless. I felt a darkness within me that I had never known, a desire to destroy that which I had once cherished. And so, I did. I demolished the house, piece by piece, until nothing remained but a pile of rubble. I stood in the wreckage, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and triumph. The apparitions were silent for a moment, and then the father's laughter filled the air. "You are him," he said, his voice a twisted echo of my own. But as the police arrived, I knew that I had made a terrible mistake. I was caught, and the weight of the crimes I had committed, the crimes I still didn't remember, crushed me. I was taken back to the prison, back to the cell where it had all begun. The walls were as cold and unforgiving as before, and the air was thick with the presence of the apparitions. The mother, the father, and the children appeared to me one final time. They stood at the foot of my bed, their eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and triumph. The mother's voice was a soft, mournful whisper. "It's over. You can't run anymore." The father's laughter was a final, cruel cackle. "You are him. You will always be him." The children's silent, accusing stares were the final straw. I couldn't bear the weight of their suffering anymore. I couldn't live with the knowledge that I had destroyed their family, that I had taken everything from them. The darkness within me, the darkness that had been unleashed by the apparitions, consumed me. I felt a strange sense of peace as I took my own life in my cell, the apparitions watching, their presence a final, damning witness to my downfall. As my lifeless body was discovered the next morning, the walls of the prison seemed to sigh, a weight lifted from their cold, unyielding stones. The apparitions were gone, their mission complete. I had become the man they had accused me of being, and in the end, I had paid the ultimate price. But the darkness remained, a shadow cast over the prison, a reminder of the sins that lurked within the hearts of men. And in the silence that followed, a new whisper began to echo through the halls, a new presence began to form, waiting for the next man who would become lost in the darkness of his own mind. Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.